Hello everybody, and welcome to my presentation, Themes Standardize Without Compromise. The slides are available up on the DrupalCorn session page, and also we're going to be covering a sample theme plan. And so there's a Google Doc that we're going to go through, but a downloadable PDF. So feel free to go to that session page, download, and follow along in the doc, but we'll all get there soon enough. I work for a company called Bounteous. I live in the Chicago suburbs. Bounteous has a strong team of Drupal front-end and back-end developers. We do great Drupal work, but we do more than just Drupal. If you're interested, we're often hiring. You can check out our website, and we have multiple locations. Bounteous has been great. We were previously HS2 Solutions. I'm going into my 10th year there, and we've expanded, and it's great. It's a great place to be. I've been working with Drupal since 2008, and a fun fact about me is I'm a musician and played in a band at Lollapalooza. But more importantly, I am a Hawkeye. I was born, raised, and educated here. On the screen, you can see me in an awesome Iowa football t-shirt, holding a nice Wilson football, and wearing a cowboy hat and a lovely bowl cut. My son wants to know where the bowl is in his grandparents' house that gave me that epic cut. But I'm really excited to be here at DrupalCorn and back in Iowa.
What was your band name?
The band I was in was in 2008, and they were called Bang Camaro. So it was a lot of fun. Check it out. All right. Agenda today, we're going to talk about why you would want to standardize your theme. We're going to go over how to create a theme plan and how that theme plan is going to help you onboard developers. So one size fits all does not apply when it comes to themes. Automatically selecting a theme based on your last project can really be dangerous. Enrolling your own custom theme every single time can be extremely inefficient. And using a contributed theme can be really frustrating because you're fighting to override defaults and opinionated styles. So let's say that a theme is like a pair of shoes. We're going to see a lot of shoes in this presentation. So your last project is done, and you're excited about your new project. Your last theme is going to look a lot like what you see on the screen here, this comfy pair of house slippers that you've been in. You can go out and get the newspaper in. They're just kind of functional, but they're just really comfortable, and it's really what you're used to. Immediately, you're going to think, hey, this is a great fit. It worked well on this other site. I'm going to go ahead and just use the last theme. And it's great until those shoes become not comfortable shoes. This is not something you want to wake up every day, slip into, and go out and get the newspaper, right? So what do you do? Maybe this new site is a single purpose, right? And this, you're going to go out and find a contributed theme that is very single purpose. And so these shoes are great. On the screen you see soccer shoes. This is great. My son, soccer shoes are great at soccer practice. But then when we hop in the car and go to the grocery store, and he's clopping around through the grocery store, those shoes are definitely single purpose, right? So your theme for single purpose might not apply to your next project that you're going to take on. Maybe the client you're working with or your stakeholders want something that's really elegant. So that comfy pair of slippers is pretty close to these. These are beautiful shoes. On the screen you see a ballet dancer. And ballet shoes. So it can be close, but is there something, when you're looking at making this decision, what is the criteria? And you just have this idea that this new site is going to be elegant. You want something that's airy and light. Again, living in the Chicagoland area, I had to put on some sweet Air Jordans, right? So this is really functional. They're high-flying. They do a great job. Everybody's talking about them. Everybody wants the new hot Air Jordans, right? So maybe that's the theme I'm going to go with. I'm not going to go with the comfy slippers. I'm going to go with what's cool and hot and what's happening. But I also want something that's used. You know, this is still functional. On the screen you see a pair of shoes for bowling. Everybody, it's a great time going bowling. I don't know people, actually I probably do know like 2 people that actually own bowling shoes. But when I go bowling, I roll in there, I go up to the counter and I get 6.5. Well, maybe these shoes are a little bit different, right? I put them on and they're weirdly comfortable. It's kind of exciting, you know, these are different kinds of shoes. But then the Lysol smell kind of starts wafting up. Anyway, I'm talking about shoes more than themes, but you get the point is, this is a used theme that everybody says is a good idea. You're going bowling, you need these shoes. And it just kind of smells a little funny, right? And it doesn't fit quite exactly what you want. At the same time, you want something that's pretty chewed on, that's pretty rugged. You don't want something that is a brand new theme that maybe isn't fully supported in the issue queue. When you go out to the contrib theme, it's getting pretty full or there's nothing there and it's brand new. So I want something that's been pretty well tested. But ultimately, what I want is I want to make the decision. I'm the front-end developer. I want to work with other front-end developers, and I want everybody that's going to be on this project to be really comfortable with it. I don't want whatever has just been washed up on the beach or somebody else that thinks it's a good idea. I want to be in charge of this. On the screen you see 4 different pairs of shoes that have washed up, and you just kind of throw your hands up and say, we'll just deal with it. Let's just get in this project and deal with it. So, talked a lot about shoes. Talked a lot about how do I make this choice. And I want to introduce you to a person that I work with, and his name is Chris Greetons. He is the practice lead, the Drupal practice lead, and he is the one that I have to answer to say, we're going to go with this theme, and this is why. So, as you can see in this picture, he's pretty intense. He's a big Brewers fan, goes to fantasy camp, and I see this face quite a bit when we're talking through projects and making decisions. And he always says, Andy, what's Bounteous's standard theme? And I would always hem and haw, like, well, he's like, we use this theme here, we use this theme here. And I guess I'm just more of a hippie where I just want the right decision for the right project at the right time. And that's putting a lot of trust with the people that I work with, which is great because I work with really great people. But in the end, for us to be really efficient, for us to have solid themes out in production, to just leave that up to the whim of the team is not that good. That's not really a standard way to gain efficiencies. So Chris also is a curmudgeon. And I'm not joking. He's like a self-identified curmudgeon. He spoke at the Twin Cities Drupal Camp, and his session was Curmudgeon's Guide to Building Drupal Website. It's a great talk. I absolutely love working with Chris. We've worked together for 8 years, built Zipcar's website. Current site I'm on is Wilson Sporting Goods. He's got a nice, sweet Wilson glove. You know, we've done some great projects, some great work, and he asks really hard, really great questions. So ultimately what he's looking for and what we need to be successful in all of our projects at Bounteous is consistency. So from project to project, it needs to be consistent. The other thing that we need is a common language with UI UX. So if we're working with a design firm, what is that common language? What are these kind of components that we're talking about? We're in this component world as front-end and theming, right? And we want that common language. We want to make it very efficient. We want to also focus on the site's differentiators. So we want to work on the fun and challenging part of the projects. And we don't want to build the hero banner and the card component again for the 5th to 20th time. And with that common language. Ongoing support and enhancements. We want to build it. We want to make it accessible. You know, we want to meet WCAG guidelines, whether it's healthcare that is required or higher ed where it's required, or whatever project down the street. We need to make sites today accessible. That's just how it is. That's the world we're living in. That's how I feel very passionately about. And if we're spinning up themes and customizing it, that's a big amount of effort that we have to do. So what does that ongoing support and enhancements look like for every component to make it accessible? and meet those guidelines. And also, easier developer ramp up. So if a new developer is going to come into the project, I want to have a well-documented, well-structured theme to make it very easy for them to come in and not say, we should be using Webpack. What is this? So it's really, ultimately, what I'm getting at is a justification document and a common language with the other developers that are working on it. While we're open to those ideas, and it's great to bring those in, there's a reason we got to this place, and to make those decisions, I need to justify and communicate that really well to the team. It's not just fiat, this is the theme we're using, deal with it. Definitely not built like that. I want to bring you along with all the decisions that were made and challenge me along the way as well. Ultimately, I had to choose. You saw the picture of Chris. You don't want to look at that guy, right? When he's looking at you intensely like that. Andy, what is the theme? So first thing I did was, again on the screen, a lot of shoes. I looked at all the shoes. I looked at all the projects. Looked at all the things. Made a list of all of our Drupal sites, 7 and 8, and listed all the themes and the versions that we were using. I just needed the data. And I wanted to see if there was an easy choice and an easy winner. So again, a takeaway from this is highly suggest you doing it. You just know where you've been to make that decision going forward. After looking at all that, there wasn't that clear winner. What's the first thing as developers we want to do? I can do this. We're going to make our own. We're going to make the best of greatest hits theme, right? Seems like a good idea. And then I think through the things that I talked to Chris about. Is it going to be consistent from project to project? Is it going to provide that common language with UI and UX? Are we going to be allowed to focus on the hard to do, or am I going to be building this thing up and constantly supporting it and having to meet the guidelines that I've met on the past 4 projects? And is it really going to help me communicate to the developers that maybe we're part of 3 of the 7 greatest hits over here and need to get ramped up on these other components? How am I going to communicate this to the developers that are coming in with those opinions? So, again, I had to choose, and I had to give him an answer. And based on this photo on the screen, can anybody guess what theme we chose as the standard theme at Bounties?
Rebar.
Good guess, but it's not. Any guesses? Foundation. Zerb Foundation. So that's the one that we've used most on projects, had been burned in the most, had great documentation, had a lot of components that we used consistently from site to site, and I had to give an answer. That was my answer. The runner-up was, any guesses on what our runner-up theme was? Got it, Bootstrap. So great, I had an answer. I had a lot of funny looks. I saw a few funny looks when I said foundation in here too, being possibly surprised that that was the theme that we went with. But I was pretty happy with it. I had that answer after all the data, after all the sites and great work that we've done and launched. We had an all-star theme. I had an opinion finally to have that conversation as I go into those projects. But I was a little curious if I said this is our theme and we're using it, that this would be the usage. On the screen before you saw a nice sweet set of Chuck Taylors clean out of the box, and on the screen now is a pair of Chuck Taylors hanging from a tree, kind of put to the side because I'm still going to build my own components, right? And then we also, my nightmare would be that we get this kind of usage, very interesting usage, very far away from what Foundation is and the reasons behind it. The other part is getting those funny looks. Miriam Suzanne gave a great talk at Design for Drupal earlier this year, and I listened. She said it over and over, users are experts, users are experts. If everybody is going to use it this way, I need to listen. My users in this case aren't the people that are visiting the site, it's the themers. So I need to listen to my users that are going to be developing this theme and building upon it. So I thought this was a great quote because I really believe in this quote. I love the rules and following them unless it's stupid, right? So where do we go? I have funny looks from front enders. I have to give Chris, who's looking at me, an answer. So where we ended up was a theme plan. And what we're going to do is I'm going to switch over to the browser. It's a Google Doc. We're going to go through what this justification, and you'll be surprised a little bit about kind of how we justified a theme on a project and where we ended up. So there's links here. You can download it as a PDF, but what I'm going to do now is go over to this document. So to give you a little context of this theme document and what we built, this was for a company that had 7 sites, and it was going to be a like-for-like going into Drupal. So 7 sites that were on various different platforms were all going to be 7 sites into Drupal. They were sold on Drupal. They were really excited about Drupal. They were like, all these modules, the talk before was 45 modules in 45 minutes. There's all this great work, we as an open source community that share. And after talking with the front enders and looking at the project, everybody goes, we're going to build a custom theme. And I'm like, that is the worst way to onboard this client to why we're using Drupal. Okay? So, however, again, with looking at Chris, with talking to this client, as you read here, to best serve this project from a front-end standpoint, we're implementing a custom Drupal theme instead of a contrib theme. So I'm just laying it out there, and the whole rest of this document is about why we did that. So let's go into a little bit about why this document, or why this was a unique situation enough to not use BOOTSTRAP in this case, or Zerb Foundation. So we set it up, but another thing, we're also talking about onboarding developers, because I'm not going to do it by myself and the other small team that's going to decide on this. This is a 7-site launch. There's a lot of work to do. There's going to be a lot of people coming and going and ramping over time to build this site. So what we really want to do is lay all of our tools out there and really communicate with everybody that's going to be involved in this project. So we won't go line by line for this, but hopefully this is you just understanding why we're doing this. Like, we're using task runners. We're going to use Gulp. We're not going to use Webpack in this situation. If we wanted to on the next project, that's great, but we're going to go with this. This is our opinion, and this is why, and these are the tools that we're going to use. We have references. If you don't know much about Gulp, if you don't know about SAS linting, we're giving you links to understand. Yes, sir?
Who is this document for? Is it for your internal developer team, or is it something you share with the client?
That is a great question. So who's the audience for the document is the question from the audience. And it is probably, that's probably the biggest weakness now that you said that I'm realizing, is that this document, for me when I built this, was for Chris, who you saw on the baseball card, for the client who were onboarding that also had developers that they wanted to chip in as well, and we had to communicate with them. So it was a little bit of the client, a little bit of internal, and also any developer that came along, we wanted to read this document. Does that help give you some context? So it is technical at times, but it's also for stakeholders to understand overall. So it's a little bit scattered. It could probably be whittled down. There's a lot of information in here that you could probably take for specific audiences, because there's a lot of detail here that some people might not need. But the other part of this document is, this is the theme plan for a 7-site re-platform of a shared code base. This probably would be a different document depending on, like, if it's an e-commerce build or whatever. So these are just the ideas that we learned from a theme plan from a re-platform. So it'd be great if somebody takes this, uses it. It'd be great to have like a theme plan library that you could look at and kind of see, but stripped out all the client name and a lot of the specifics here just to make it generic enough for everybody. But that is an excellent question. So gets a little geeky here, but this was a big decision for us too. Is we had to understand our grid system. Being a front-end developer, we really have to know what we're putting things inside of. So we made the decision to use CSS grids and Flexbox, which was an interesting twist on it. There's reasoning behind this, and this justifies it, because that feels kind of weird, right? You're using both. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? This is why. And there's some links here, because I don't know about you, but I'm maybe not ready to just jump in on a CSS grid project right now. I need some links and resources. Give me a day or two to get comfortable, to get right back into that mindset. You know, this is just some basic theming stuff. You just want to go through and lay out our theme regions, so not terribly exciting. But this is where things get pretty exciting, especially on a replatform project. When you work with 7 sites on 7 different platforms, and they want to have one platform, it was a lot of work to get to what you see on the screen here. There's a lot of breakpoints and trying to dial in all these sites, because we don't want to have custom breakpoints for every single thing. We're talking about using shared components across these sites that look fairly different. But this was a desire. The desire was also that the reason they wanted to share these components is because they had accessibility guidelines. And if we built it 7 different ways at 7 different breakpoints, that is a very daunting challenge. So this part of the document, back to the question in the room, who is this for? This was a great way to let even the highest stakeholder go, hey, why is it in mobile mode? Like, when did that, why did the menu go to mobile mode? And there's reasonings kind of behind this, and we're setting those expectations, because while this is fairly geeky to get them into our breakpoints, there's a lot of visual implications that happen within these breakpoints. Specifically was a big effort to talk them into a shared navigation system. Everybody likes their own navigation until it doesn't meet accessibility requirements. And the mega menu, and there's 50 different things going on in there. You know, it was a lot of work to get to these breakpoints and helping them understand it. The other part, too, that was really exciting about this, a huge challenge, and this actually, for me, should have probably been way at the front, is the first question I ask when I roll into a project about a theme, is we have to know our browsers. I don't care what it was before. I want to know the last 3 months of analytics of what browsers are happening today. And this is fascinating with these 6 sites. If you look at site 1 on the screen, the mobile traffic within the past 3 months was 64%. And go down to site 4 here, actually. It's not going to work. It's okay. So site 1, 64. You go down to site 4, it's 62%. So this is a vastly different audiences consuming this. That has to be on a shared platform. So this was quite a challenge to just kind of understand this info, understand their support, IE support, and that helped inform us all the way back up to like what grid we're going to use, so we can understand how we're assembling this. Accessibility guidelines, again, very passionate about building sites that everybody can use. Whether it's a requirement or not, it should be a requirement, or just ingrained in your themers that we're going to make this site for everybody. This was also fascinating too, because I'm a big component and pattern library guy. I work with great people that speak a lot about that shared language between UI and UX. The fascinating thing about this particular project is because it was a 7 for 7, like for like, shift over. What's the point of a pattern library? Like, we have to have it look like what it's like today. It's going to change a little bit because we're having shared components, but not enough to really justify a pattern library. We also had kind of, imagine this, right? We had a short time frame to kind of get this done. I know that'll shock a lot of people here, but short time frame, was it really worth all the added benefit to have a pattern library when we really didn't need that UI UX interaction because you just point your finger at what's currently live? There were, to say that, we did have those moments where we did have to bring in UI and UX and work on a few things because there were some changes, but it wasn't worth a lot of effort of like an external design system. Mega menus. Lord knows everybody loves the mega menus. We've had great success with TV mega menu. I'm very excited that we're planning to release, we're working on and have done a lot of great work on making TV mega menu accessible. There's a good patch out there, but on the projects, and especially with this project, we've made it better, and so we're working to give that back to the community. Yes?
You're going to port that to Drupal 8?
Yes, because this is a Drupal 8.
Oh, it is a Drupal 8?
Yeah.
Last time I looked, it wasn't, but I haven't looked at that in a while.
Mm-hmm. So TV mega menu is in Drupal 8.
And your team is working on it?
Just silent, like we're not in talks with them, but we use this module and we made it accessible and did some good enhancements to it, and we're looking to give that back to the community. So that's an initiative. Before the year is out, it might bleed into January, depends. But that's something that I'm really excited about. I work on a D7 project, and definitely there's a lot that we can get back for D7. And the gentleman, his name's Wade, that worked on this for D8. I think there's some great strides that we can make with that menu. Again, it's a very good menu that we used on this project. Mobile menus, components, let's just skip down. Images, it really helps talking through, especially with those mobile versus desktop stats. Image styles are a must. Define those. Understand how your users are going to upload images and where they're going to live in your components. So image styles are great. I think this probably got broken out a little bit more to get more specific because, as we all know, marketing teams, really want to know about aspect ratios, and a banner that looks like this looks horrible on mobile because it squeezes way down. So they want to swap that out with a more portrait image. So image styles are great. They can handle a lot of that. Additional JavaScript libraries that we use. So Slick Carousel. We don't want to use any old carousel. We've had great success with Slick. I think there's a little bit more juice. We need to make carousels a little more accessible. But I think we're getting there. But that's just to let onboarding developers know these are the libraries that we're using. Get familiar with them. Know that they're there if you have a solution for that. And for this layout builder that is here, it is now. We should use it. This explains the different types of layouts we're going to use. Challenges of a replatform. Different layouts. Everybody wants to keep their layout. Well, we got to dial you into, a 50-50 split. These are our column numbers, a 3-9, a 9-3. We don't want to make a million different layouts for components. Finally, we're getting to the good stuff. I'm just going to go to the graphic here because this is what we had. We started out, I'm going to go from, on the screen, I have an image. I'm going to start at the bottom and go up because that's how I feel the theme. So we started out with Drupal's core theme, Classy. And then what we wanted to do is we have a client that's a base theme that's shared. Every component, everything that needs to be shared is going to be on that. And generic, very generic looking, not very opinionated styles or colors, because on top of that, we're going to have sub-themes for every single site on top of it. So this is the strategy, this is the plan. If you find yourself in site 2 theming a whole lot, you might be doing something wrong. Or you're doing something really right, and then we're going to nail it for site 2, and then we're going to come back and share that with everybody. I've done that on large platform projects where one site really wants this feature. Example with the Wilson platform, Louisville Slugger wants their athletes a certain way, and we work on this, and we work on this. And then that easily transposes to their tennis sites, So that's the strategy, that's the plan. As you can tell, I'm all about the idea of working on site too, but we have to have a plan for sharing and genericizing it. And don't want to get in the way of work, and we always have to be working in base first, and that's the way it is. Well, if we need to launch these athletes before the World Series, for the site too, for the love of God, let's just do that, and then we'll share it after that. The other part of it is you're going to get some great learnings before you share that with everybody on the platform. Web fonts, this is just a great thing to just put everything that's you're going to use in the site. This is a very important thing for front-end themers and stylers, is what is the naming convention? You don't want it to be the Wild West out there. We want everybody to be vested in the naming convention. And we decided on BEM syntax, which is block element modifier. And we want to give you the right syntax and documentation and let you know how things should be named consistently. No surprises, right? That's what we're trying to avoid. If I get a code review and I start seeing pixels everywhere, I know you didn't read this because we're going to use rem. Or it's an easy thing to say, I'm sorry, just use the rem calculator to get what we need here. And finally, just letting them know there's some custom modules. This isn't contrib, but we built a pretty good GDPR module that we're pretty happy with. That worked really well for a financial institution. We are bringing it to this re-platform, which was education. It's not, the question is this a module that we'd share out there? Maybe, but we're just trying to get the requirements and the needs as we see here. So I'm going to go back to the presentation and we'll kind of wrap things up. So as you saw, this document is great for helping Onboard. It gives them links, gives them naming conventions, and gives other developers an idea of the lay of the land and the justification for what we're building. So we'll just recap here. So these were the 5 things in my conversation with Chris, and as our front-end team at Bounteous, we need to do. We need to have consistency. We have to have this common language with the UI UX. We really are tired of building card components. We want to focus on the really cool stuff, like maybe a map integration or something more exciting than another hero. Ongoing support and enhancements. These are burned in. This is a platform. It's been launched. This theme is working well. So I don't want to, if I'm always constantly rolling it, I don't want to be supporting it. This is a good decision. And easy development ramp up. Another great quote that means a lot to me is you really want to learn these rules so you can break them, right? It's that justification that just helps everybody all around. So hopefully, as we've gone through this, you can see how theme plans really can help you communicate with the client, with your team, and with yourself, and having that informed decision of we always want to use Foundation until it doesn't work for us. And then when it doesn't work for us, why? And we explain it through the theme document. Thanks so much. I'm open to more great questions. Yes?
So what I'm learning is that as you're using things like BEM syntax for CSS selectors, that it's best practice to not use the ones that Drupal kind of gives you out of the box. Do you have any policies on that? Like, for example, when you build a view and styles for the class name of that view name, that's the way the project that I'm inheriting has been done, and it kind of drives me crazy. So is that just the way nobody does it?
The question is CSS syntax with what Drupal gives you versus what the standards are for what you're saying on the project. Is that a good summary of it? And So my rule is consistency until it creates a barrier for a lot more work. I don't want to overwrite something. If Drupal's giving me something and it's not my desired BEM syntax, but it's working and I'm getting the results of what I have in there, it's okay to just have those and then maybe sprinkle a few classes on top. And it's a little bit mixed. I'm not a purist on just BEM syntax. If Drupal is spitting something out, I'm not going to force it into my BEM syntax, because in the end, I'm the only one that's reading it. I want the site to, I have to take that step back and say, boy, that's a lot of work, and the site is looking good and it's consistent. And Drupal core should win, right? This is my engine. So if the engine wants to spit it out this way, great. If I have an opportunity to write it as BEM, and it's not adding a lot more layers, then great, we should go for that. But I wouldn't want to overthink a lot of it. I don't know your specific situation, but if you're just writing classes because it's starting, you really want it to feel right. But if after a day's worth of work, it still looks the same, and it's just using different classes, then what was really the point of that? So, yep. The thing about BIM syntax, though, I will say is it helps explain what's going on. It's documenting styles and telling you what certain things are as you go. But we're all working with Drupal. This isn't a front-ender that's not familiar with Drupal. If Drupal's spitting out views and view row and like all these things at me, I get it. It's cool. Any other questions? Yes.
Can you maybe show us some sites that you did with Foundation?
Sure. Not terribly exciting, but this is a D7. This is site. This is the hero component that I was talking about. So I work on the Wilson project, who also has Louisville Slugger, DeMarini. If you're into baseball, know those. But in this case, this is one of the components that we had. It has an image. This text there's 9 different placements. So this is bottom right, there's bottom middle, top. So that text can move anywhere based on what the image needs. There's some accessibility things that we're working on through this, so that may be something people say. But this is a grid foundation 4-up grid, which is as a basic card component. We also turned it into a carousel. So this is the slick carousel. More heroes. Lots of heroes. Sure, let's see if we can buy something. This is also, Magento is the shopping cart of this, but the grid behind the scenes here is all the foundation grid. And this uses Panelizer, so the page is panelized so they can pull in whatever component. This is what we call a text divider component. You can either have an image or a solid image behind it, headline, subheadline, more grid stuff, kind of card component-y stuff. So from a platform standpoint, so we go to the Wilson homepage. This hero component is the exact same component as the Louisville Slugger page, which is in card components underneath. So that's the cool thing about a platform, right? Is very different styles from Wilson, who has to share with a lot of different sports. Oh, that's cute. Isn't that nice? Crushing the holidays. So this is a hero component that we call super ultra slim. So Wilson has the very large hero component. This one's aspect ratio is tighter. Same card component. Images are insane. It can really change the feel of a site, as you saw clicking from each one, but the engine is all the same like you're here. Any other questions? Well, I'd love it. Actually, John had a great idea. I'd love to have a BOF if people want to talk more about how to make these theme plans better. If you look through it, saw something was glaring missing, or was like, hey, what do you mean by this? I'd be happy to talk about it. I'd love to see a theme library. I don't know what we would do with it, but this is, I think, a pretty decent re-platform one. If you're on a project and want to use this, that'd be great. Let's share, let's talk, and let's do something with it. But it'd be a great way to give it back to the community. I'm a big nerd on documentation, as you can tell, and justification. I don't like fiats, just like, this is what we're doing. This is our browser support. It's never going to change. I want to tell you why we got there. I always say you're just walking into a house, you take all these corners, you got there for a reason. When you look back, you don't know where you came in, but there's reasoning behind that. So that document really helps you understand every turn and corner as we went. Well, thanks so much. We'll set up a BOF if people are interested, and thanks.